Hey, you guys, Cindy here. I am so happy to be with you today. I'm talking about a topic that is really near and dear to me, and it's all around compromising or settling in relationships. And this is something that many people struggle with, the idea of compromise versus settle. So I'm going to first start off with discussing, what is the definition of compromise? The definition of compromise when I actually looked this up earlier when I was doing a bit more research, but it's when two people come to an agreement that is satisfactory to both. So it's when two people come to an agreement. In all relationships, we do have compromise. It's somebody giving a little bit on one side and the other person giving a little bit on their side too, to come to meet in the middle for what I call a happy medium, so to speak. So the other side to that is what I call the compromise piece, right? I want to talk. I have some notes around this that I think are really important to share. The settling piece. Sorry. So when we think about, what is settling? Settling is something that comes from the energy of lack, something that comes from, I can make this better. This is as good as it gets. So this is when I think about it in relation to our relationship. So it's not going to get any better than this. I don't really want to date anymore. Maybe it's not that bad. Hi, Kelly. Hi, Helene. It's good to see you guys. It's that energy. It comes from, maybe it's just not possible for me to live the dream. Maybe it's not possible for me to have what I want. So when we are talking about that, it's that energy of lack. And then I'm going to take settling a step further. It's actually compromising your value system. So, and let me just give you an example around that. And then I'll go to an example of compromising. So let's just say you are in a relationship and, things for the most part are great. And then, you guys had agreed upon certain things when it came to long-term. Maybe that was having a family. And your partner comes to you and says, I really don't want to I decided I really don't want to have kids. So what comes up? Maybe your stomach drops. There's a pit in your gut. And you're like, no, I've always wanted to have children. Maybe that was a childhood dream. So then there's choice points involved. Do I compromise? And this sucks if this happens when you're deeper in relationship. It does happen. What do you do? Or somebody decides on a different lifestyle choice, right? I might want to try polygamy, but let's just stick with the kids thing. And that was always a dream of yours. So if you're settling, you're going to be settling for that person, being in a relationship with that person. This is as good as it gets. And while you could be okay or relatively happy, but you're in this place where you're not actually living at your full capacity and your values. So if you're with a partner that, maybe a high value to you is intellectual conversations, or, having good conversations, connecting in the world, or having similar passions, and you feel a real disconnect there. I mean, all relationships take work, guys. It's just, that's what it is in general. But if you feel like you're constantly compromising what your deeper values are, and that could mean, you don't feel like they're listening. They don't really listen. You've tried everything under the sun, and you've, my guess is that was probably going on the whole time. But at any rate, after the 3-month mark, people take their masks off. And what can happen when you're settling is you might be in love with the potential of the individual, the potential of who you see they could be, but they're not actually showing up as. And you're doing yourself a disservice, and it actually chips away at your own value as a human being and what your purpose is on this planet by settling. So, and I definitely recommend, if you're in this quandary of, looking at, is this right for me? Am I compromising or settling? And compromising means that, two people are actually working together. Two people are seeking to understand one another's points. It's not about, I don't know if you've ever heard, would you rather be right or would you rather be happy, right? And, a compromise can look like this, when, maybe you guys had agreed to go to the beach all afternoon, and, there was just, you guys had a, great day planned, and all of a sudden something came up with his family that needed to be addressed. And, maybe this might be an early dating, right? We'll say that. And, his family had a function, and he really needed to be there, and he didn't realize it. So you've got choice. You could bitch and moan and complain about it, or you can actually go, okay, so let's come to a compromise. Let's be flexible. And that is actually part of the feminine energy, is flexibility, flow, being able to be adaptable. Hi, Tyra, it's good to see you. And if you're not willing to compromise, if you're stuck in that place, what happens is the relationship becomes very selfish, and both parties become selfish. If I'm not getting my way, then I'm going to make your life hell tonight. Who's done that? Who's been in a place where, the plans changed, you didn't like it, and, all of a sudden, for lack of a better way of saying it, you're pouting. You're not making the best of the situation. Who's done that? Just put a thumbs up, because I know I have. I'm not too proud to say it either. So, put a thumbs up if you've been in a position where you were inflexible, and did you feel a division that created in your relationship? It doesn't happen all the time, you guys. Put a thumbs up in the comments box. I would love that. I'm just curious too. And, the other side to that, the compromise, and I'm going to be talking more about this because this goes into our emotional triggers. Oftentimes when we feel like the plans are being changed depending on your attachment style. So if you're more of an anxiously attached person or an anxiously avoidant attached person, if the plans changed, you can get a little jarred, and it can create a response that is maybe a little more rigid. So it's not as flexible. So how does one become flexible when you're inflexible? How does one understand, the difference between compromising and settling? It's getting really clear, what are my values, and instead of reacting on a situation when it changes or there's an opportunity for a conversation. So I see this a lot. Either a woman will shut down and concede, or she might fight it till the end. But when, instead of having a conversation around, well, okay, so this is this is what I'm experiencing in this moment. And, ideally, I would love to be at the beach all day like we originally discussed. And I understand things come up, as far as family is concerned. Would it, what would you think about us leaving your family event a little bit earlier so we could spend some time at the beach? You see how that's a compromise, right? Instead of, it's got to be all or nothing. And a lot of times this creates immaturity. It creates people acting out when we're inflexible about that compromise. And, couples that, that I interview or that I ask that have really long-term success, they talk about compromise. And, many of them say, we've gone through years without liking each other, but they learn to work together as partners, and they learn to move through the different stages of their relationships and actually develop a deep love and support of one another so that they can move forward in actually having what they both wanted. They both had similar visions in life. And as things changed, they continued to mutually support one another and develop the tools to do that. It's not easy, guys. I'm telling you, it's easier said than done. And, when it comes to settling, it's like, what I would encourage you to do is, as you're getting to know someone, does this look like, am I seeing red flags early on? What are red flags? Ask questions, get curious. And are you finding that you're not really able to utilize your voice? So there's different levels of comfort when it comes to individuals. So if you find yourself shutting down a lot, and that may be because of triggering, I would absolutely look for getting some support in this area, hiring a coach, finding support, whether it's me or someone else. You can actually sign up. There's a link here to speak with me. How do you manage those triggers? Because the triggers are really our guide. And, if we're in this point where we're inflexible, it's hard to even get to the next stage of, am I settling or am I compromising? Because there's always this competition, tug of war. This isn't right. And, a lot of that comes from our own operation out of fear. How do we move past that? Something that I learned in a training that I utilize in my life actually daily, because I risk a lot, is, I'm going to feel this fear and I'm going to go for it anyways. I'm going to feel what's underneath this. I'm going to go for it anyway. I'm not going to give up. And I'm going to continue to remember my values. So, communication and curiosity is key. So if you're in this, early dating phase, or you're transitioning into relationship, you get to look at, what are my wants, needs, and desires? And it doesn't always happen overnight. It can take time. I can give you an example of this really quick. So I may have shared this one before, but I really love it. It's, you know, a woman I used to work with, before she married her husband, she really appreciated chivalry. She still does. And, you know, she likes it when a man opens her door, you know, walks on the outside of her, you know, takes her into consideration in that sense, right? And, you know, she's also has her own business. She's, you know, she's a strong, independent woman. So chivalry doesn't mean, you know, appreciating that sort of honoring doesn't mean that, that you can't be a strong, independent woman. So, you know, she would share with him, you know, this is my value. This is what I appreciate. He's like, okay, I can do that. And he would forget. Sometimes as human beings, we get impatient and we start to take it personally. Oh, he's doing that on purpose. Oh, he forgot about me. And one time he had, you know, they had gone to the restaurant, they pull up and he jumps out of the car and he walks into the restaurant and she's just sitting there in the car. And he comes back and he kind of looks at her like, well, what are you doing? Where are you coming? You know, why aren't you coming? And she just smiled and she sat there and then it dawned on him, oh, whoops, I totally forgot to open the door. And he opens the door and she just smiled and said, oh, thanks, honey. And they went back in. You know, that night could have been turned into a really crappy night had she not chosen to take the high road and knew that he was willing to work with her and compromise, right? So looking at, do I want a selfish relationship? Who am I and how am I really showing up and how am I manifesting these behaviors in my relationship? So that's a thought to continue to ponder. And I'll be back for more of this. I hope this was helpful. I'm sending you guys so much love and feel free to put your questions, comments below. I am more than happy to answer them. See you soon. And if you're on YouTube, please, if you like this information, please feel free to hit subscribe and like. We really appreciate that. And any feedback, questions, and comments, we'd love to hear them. Lots of love. Mwah.